The new Chevy Chase Dan Aykroyd comedy Spies Like Us opens today, and it's anything but a state secret what our Leonard Maltin thinks of it.
You know what? I just saw Spies Like Us, and I liked it. If I sound surprised, it's because I don't hold out much hope for movie comedies these days. So many of them are bad, even with good people involved. Not so for Spies Like Us. Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd are a perfect team, and they work together like Abbott and Costello, or, more to the point, Hope and Crosby.
Lawson, your turn to drive.
These are the Yusuf side. They're Afghani freedom fighters. They're our allies.
Oh! We're Americans!
This film is full of gags and funny ideas, and they're carried out funny by the two stars and the razor-sharp timing of their director, John Landis, who has his own private joke of casting other film directors and even Blue star B.B. King in a variety of tiny roles. Here's one time the Too Many Cooks take the cake. Aykroyd wrote the original story with another funny guy, Dave Thomas, from SCTV. Then Aykroyd did the script with Lowell Gans and Babaloo Mandel, the fellows who co-wrote Splash and Night Shift. However they divided their work, it adds up to a funny movie. I laughed a lot, and that's the best recommendation I can give any comedy. So I'm giving Spies Like Us an 8. I'm Leonard Maltin, Entertainment Tonight.
Please do.
Okay, gentlemen, stand by.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, action.
Well, guys, hi.
Hi.
Here we go again.
Hi, Bobby.
I've never talked with both of you at the same time. It's always been Chevy by himself, Dan by himself. But anyway, we'll have a go at this and see how we make out. Spies Like Us. I've been looking forward to this film because really I've mentioned it in previous interviews when you were working on it. And so now that the time is here and the public is getting ready to see it, Danny, let me start with you. You wrote the story and the screenplay. So at the time, did you have Chevy in mind to do?
Well, this project started a long time ago, just after Blues Brothers, basically. I outlined the story and wrote the first draft with John Landis in mind as director and Belushi in mind as a co-star. Now, even if John and John had been willing to do it at that time, the script was sort of in rough shape and kind of formless. It didn't have this great political kind of scenario backdrop that we have today. Those situations, the SDI and all that, didn't exist back then. And so the script really wasn't ready at that time. John and I went on to do other things, and you know, obviously John was not meant to be in this project. The script was resurrected. Warner's bought it from Universal and reassigned me to write it, and I went away and wrote a draft specifically with Chevy in mind. I showed it to him. He liked it, so there half the battle was won. The movie was on its way to being made. Then Chevy and I got into a room together, actually sat down, wrote line by line together. We wrote the training sequence together. And then we brought in Gans and Mandel, who were the Oscar-nominated team from Splash, and they did a huge amount of work just shaping it and using. You know, when you write in a team, when you've got two guys writing, it provides for that flow of dialogue that you somehow can't get as a solo writer. So their work was entirely necessary. And that draft, again, Chevy and I looked at, and then Landis and I looked at. So it went through a lot of stages to come to where it is now. And I'm very happy with the distillation and very happy that Chevy's on board.
Chevy, wake up there.
Any mail for me? What?
Watching this film, I'm thinking, here we are in the desert.
Oh.
And here we are in the snows of Norway, and I'm thinking...
Pamir Mountains, actually, for the story, but go ahead.
Oh, the where?
It was supposed to be, well, we play Norway for the Pamir Mountains and Morocco for Pakistan. But
yes,
that's
okay.
the illusion, anyway.
Okay, all right. Anyway, we're in the desert, and we're in the snowy mountains. So you had to be going from horrendous heat to horrendous
From hot
cold.
to cold, yeah.
Yes. All right, so as they say, how hot was it and how cold was it?
Well, extraordinarily enough, in the mountains it was about 98 degrees, very hot.
Sun Valley
In the
time.
desert, it was freezing, just absolutely like 30 below in the desert. So it was a difficult thing to do.
So you're putting me on.
I am.
Well, sometimes
No,
mountains
it
do
got,
get warm.
It got very cold in Norway, and a lot of our shooting was at night. And we were up high in the fjords, inland from Bergen, which I know we're all familiar with. And I would say it got below zero easily, with the wind chill quite a bit colder than that. The Sahara was more than hot and dry. It was dusty, something I never really knew about that desert. Was you could be caked with dust just after a slight wind change. And that was the hardest part of shooting in the desert. It was just, there were a lot of little tornado-type winds, you know, the kinds of things you get in Texas. They'd just shoot up, and you'd be blinded by it, and your face would just be caked with it.
And, you know,
but not that hot, well, not too hot, very dry.
Always, you know, squirting off the lenses with air and all that. I mean, it
rained for the first time in 6 years when we got there, and there were children who lived there had never seen rain in the desert where we were.
That is true. Yeah, the film unit. That's, of course, film units love rain. We get there.
One thing you don't want is rain.
Yeah,
it ruins your day.
And we get there,
and it rains for the first time in 6 years.
In the desert in the Sahara. So we were blessing the population there with much needed water.
Dan, I see that you have there the cassette, John Belushi's cassette.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts about it?
Well, you know, I just brought it along just in case there were any questions about John, because I can say, you know, I can watch him every day.
There he is.
It's a great tape. It's from Warner's home video.
I don't feel there's enough of me in it, to be honest.
598. It's wonderful because it's full of music and also the best things that John did. And what it does is just remind us that we loved him because he was a great performer and a great talent. And
it's beautifully edited. It's really a masterful piece. And you really come away remembering John as one of the great physical comics.
Which is
great,
important,
funny,
you know,
impressionists.
Because, listen, you know,
there have been so many things written about him that were negative that had little to do with what he gave us.
Exactly.
This is
very positive.
This is really Judy's, his wife's undertaking, and she did it really well.
As you look back at those days, do you get so nostalgic about it and think, gee, they were so wonderful? Or do you look back and say, my God, how did we ever survive all that hard work? And it had to be arduous.
Well, I got out, you know, after the first year. Dan stuck it out for, what, 5?
Well,
4 years?
3 more after you left.
4 years. I mean, it was grueling. And
but
I don't know how he did it.
Most exciting, the heaviest charged up time. I mean, just going in October to Rockefeller Center and knowing what we had to do and just, you know, feeling those crisp fall winds and watching them freeze over the rink and knowing that
I was just there. I just did a second show for Lauren, and the week, I mean, it was an exhausting week, and I realized that after the show, you know, oh, now it's party time and now everything's, but I realized they've got, you know, 20 more to do. I mean, in a row. I mean, it's just, and that's what we were doing, and I remember it was really.
It's not something
really tough. It's you can't do it for long.
Can't go back easily, really. You know, it's hard.
No, it's hard to go back. Yeah.
This is
take
better.
A plane. Huh?
This is better. Today is better, huh?
Oh, I'll tell you something. It's very different. I would, if I could, go back 10 years ago. I'd love to relive it again. I mean, but what you can do on live television, particularly when the nature of the times are a polarization in the country, and it's an election year, and you can comment on the immediacy, you know, with immediacy on things and current, because you're live. That's a wonderful showcase for thoughts and talent. Making films, you have a year, you know, before the film is out. So it's different. You're working with different reference points, and you're working on spec more. And it's a different kind of a risk, and it's a lot more fun in many ways. But I don't think it's any easier.
The satisfactions are different because you get immediate gratification when you write a piece and it's on that week.
Yeah.
And here, you know, you kind of have to wait to see what everybody's going to think many months later.
Well, we hope everybody thinks Spies Like Us is a lot of fun.
Well, we know it is.
Well.
It is.
You know, and it's funny.
We had fun.
It's all for
funny.
laughs.
Okay.
And we're going to pay to go see it.
Okay. Good to see you both.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Okay, pause.
Soliloquy, or we're out of this?
You just keep quiet.
That'll be hard.
Okay, here we go. You ready?
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, roll.
Dan, did you always have in mind for Chevy to work with you in this movie? Now here you are in this film. You're going from the desert to the mountains, so I have to ask you, how cold was it? Dan, I noticed you've brought the cassette, the John Belushi cassette, with you. What are your feelings about this cassette of John's? When you look back on those Saturday Night Live days, do you wonder how in the world you ever got through it? It had to be an arduous schedule. What kind of thoughts do you have as you think back on those days? Okay. All right, let's do reactions now. That ought to do it. Thank you.
Every adventure film, especially every spy film, has its collection of remarkable villains, and Spies Like Us is no exception. Steve Forrest and Bruce Davison give as good as they get.
Well, I play Mr. Ruby, or Mr. Keys. I keep forgetting to get them mixed up.
Mr. Keys.
I'm part of a duo with William Prince, and I are the CIA Secret Service Ace Tomato Company operatives. We are very surreptitious and covert, and we work in tandem with the generals, which Steve is the other half of.
It's amazing, as I look at you now, I can't believe that you're that character in the movie, but of course that's what acting's all about. But you do represent that really hateful kind of bureaucrat, don't you?
Smug Harvard,
Yes.
Princetonian, Dartmouth kind of.
And Steve Forrest, you, the general. What a general. What
Yes.
a disarmingly lethal man.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
He wants to be certain that whatever peace conference might come and whatever result might issue therefrom, that his thumb on the button will be no less potent after than before. He wants to have that power. And he has to have that power. But he's a rational man.
A rational man. The interesting thing about the film, as you were just saying, one of the interesting things about the film is just towards the end, and of course we can't give the ending, but is there any way that you can point out what you found rather fascinating about it, without giving away the ending?
I think it's interesting to look into character because it's the character of individuals like this that always have mesmerized me. And of course, I don't believe that nuclear war will end the world. Self-righteousness will.
Mm-hmm.
And he's right. And he knows it. I never doubted it.
A lot of our speeches are taken verbatim from that self-righteousness, from real characters.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that whole last speech is almost lifted from excerpts of what people...
Marry me?
Donna Dixon, who plays the female lead in this spy caper, is the real-life wife of Dan Aykroyd. A former medical student, she's known for the comedy series Bosom Buddies and the recent series Berringers. I asked her whether she'd been serious about her medical career.
Didn't you? Absolutely. I started out as an anthropology major, actually, and concerned my parents greatly because they thought I was going to be the next Margaret Mead. I found myself living in South America in a village where I was surrounded by poverty. And I think it was my second year of college that I took a course in developmental psychology and did my thesis on a birth of a child. I got permission from the mother and went actually into the operating room and took pictures step by step of a cesarean section, tubal ligation. And from that point on, I decided that I was going to switch my career. I mean, I've always had an obsession with children. I mean, it started when my little sister was born and I thought she was my baby. And I've worked with children throughout my life, mentally retarded children, so on. But when I was in college, I was modeling for a means of income. And while I was doing that, I had offers from New York. And anything that I've ever done in my life, I've always wondered if I could do it to the best of my ability and be at the top of my field. So I decided that I would go to New York, only for a season. And I found myself enjoying an aspect of my life and being very successful. So I decided that I would stay because I knew that I could always go back to school, which I did. In fact, I went to, I took a class at Kingston last year in Canada at the university in abnormal psychology. My husband was writing a script, and I thought that would be a perfect opportunity to go back to school, which I did.
Your husband, of course, is a Canadian.
Yes, he is.
Born in Kingston.
Yes.
Well, that's something that I didn't know. And he's obviously involved in the same business too, then?
Yes, he's a writer and an actor.
And your father was an army officer, and you lived a period in Europe.
Yes, I was born in Alexandria, Virginia, raised in Europe, and educated in Virginia. Moved to New York for 2 years, and now I've been in California for the past 5 years.
And now you find yourself in this crazy picture, traveling all over the rest of the world. I'm sure you've been
Isn't
in places
it wonderful?
that you have never been before.
You are absolutely right. This film took us to London. That was our home base. So we lived there for 5 months, and it was wonderful because I didn't feel like a tourist. I was actually living there. And we went to Sogndal, Norway, which was one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to. We rented a home right on a fjord. A great Viking battle took place in my front yard. From there, we went to Ouarzazate, which is in Morocco, which is, believe me, is not where it's at. I found it to be a God-forsaken country, land, that is. We're in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and we were very isolated. But we went from one world into another. It was one of the greatest experiences of my lifetime, and one that I'll take with me forever.
Oh, I really envy you. I envy you, but I think when you started out, you must have felt a little bit intimidated going with this zany group of Saturday Night Live graduates, Second City. How did you feel? Did you feel as though they were going to be difficult to work with?
Well, actually, not at all. I wasn't intimidated at all because my husband is a comedian. And he's from Saturday Night Live. And all his friends are his peers, which of course they are mine also. I take care of them. In fact, Chevy Chase, his wife, had just had a baby, had to leave his family. It was very difficult for him. And so my husband and I adopted him while we were away.
Well, you said you love children.
I do love children, and they are my children. And so it was really perfect for the role, because Karen Boyer had to be very strong, and she could not be intimidated by these men. If anything, they had to be intimidated by her. Well, I've lived with these men. I've played with these men. And needless to say, I wasn't intimidated at all.
When you were working with them, Karen, and there was a lot of chemistry.
Yes.
And, of course, Chevy Chase is I suppose, men would fantasize pursuing you in any circumstances. But with Chevy doing it, he's so totally inept. Yeah. that it makes it all seem quite believable.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Chevy is actually very shy, which is so wonderful because he's so handsome, so witty, talented, athletic. He has everything, and yet he's so shy. In fact, in the film, we had a screen kiss, and we both were a little nervous about it. And, but he was extremely nervous, I must say. And there was one scene that was very delicate. I'm sure you know the scene that I'm talking about. And we were very nervous about that. But I realized to play that scene that the only way that it would work is with the utmost of dignity, and that's how I had to play it. But it was wonderful being Chevy's love interest. It was a lot of fun.
This will verify.
And a lot of people who like to laugh. So I'm not concerned. It's hard. Comedies don't generally get great reviews. One of the reasons is, particularly I would say, comedies that have been put out by any members of the Saturday Night Live gang, because it's always you're left something that you were really good at and you went out to get the big money in Hollywood. You know, that's
and you
the
really
way
don't quite
think.
deserve to be on the big screen
Yeah.
yet because you haven't paid your dues.
Right, you got to pay your dues.
You're an arrogant person.
You're arrogant.
Right?
And after all, what were you doing before Saturday Night Live? Just hanging around drinking beer? And, you know, he's working my butt off for 12 years writing and stuff. But the fact of the matter is, I was telling you earlier that, number one, I want to get this off my chest. Okay? Just kidding. I'm going to miss you personally, and I think everybody is. You've become an institution on this network. I think it's a dumb network for doing this. And let me finish this.
You know, I get,
let me finish,
I get nervous about this because then people will think I put you up to it, you see, and...
Tom, am I reading it? It's right there for me, but I'm not looking. No, I tell you, it's a mistake on two fronts. One is, you are an institution. People do want to see you. And the idea of putting you back to 2:30 in the morning is the most obnoxious thought. The second thing is...
Well, but you see, eventually I would catch up with the Today Show.
You'd be on the Today Show, yeah. And the second thing is for David, who I also like, David Letterman. It was great to give him a 9 o'clock show. That's kind of show you one 9 a.m. show for David Letterman. Made a lot of sense. Now they're putting him in a slot that's wrong for him. It's just completely... It's like NBC. Look out, PBS, we're coming after you. You know, what are they looking for, ratings? I mean, what? You know, they're really getting close. Now, I want to see it. I want to hear Our Pride is Broken.
Oh, come on.
And second of all, as an answer to that question, incidentally, this reflects on somebody I won't be missing on your show, Rex Reed. No, just a minute.
Okay, all right.
I won't miss Rex Reed at all. And I'll tell you why. I don't like him. I'll tell you why I don't like him. Last night I saw Rex review a movie with my friends in it, Dan and John. They're very funny guys. They work very hard. And Rex's review was something to the effect of, that fat slob, John Belushi played a fat slob. This guy's a dip. I don't like him. And he can sue me. I don't... What I'm trying to say is, Tom, you don't do that to people. In fact, you're nice enough to Rex to laugh at his reviews. People up there laugh, too. I'm not sure what they're laughing at. And if he thinks they're laughing at Myra Breckenridge or his great performances or what. But when people do things like say things that nasty about movies, I don't want to see him on the air. And I'm glad this show's off if he's going.
He's
Those
going.
are my friends, and I don't like what he said.
Well,
why don't you just review a movie and say, wasn't that, instead of doing a whole act?
Now can I have a little equal time, please?
No.
Okay.
I got that off.
For whatever you said, I appreciate your personal feelings, and I thank you for all the kindnesses you've had for me over the years. I may share some of what you said, but the bottom line is they let me do it for a long, long time here, 8.5 years. And without their support over those 8.5 years, what is going off tonight never would have happened, so that the coin can be turned around. It's, you know,
that's fair and that's true.
Well, it's the honest truth, and I'll tell you why it's the truth. You never burn the bridge, you know what I'm saying to you? You don't want to be out there on the island, look back and say, where the hell's the bridge? Oh, we burned the bridge down. Forget that. I mean, leave the bridge open.
Yeah, but you'll be back in another capacity with a bigger bridge.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, I have the hot dog concession over here by St. Patrick's. It's going to be unbelievable. I'm going to have...
I'll be open for dinner.
No, I'm not open for dinner.
I can't afford it.
To get back to what you said about Rex Reed, and let's not just single him out. There is a growing...
Rex, I'm sorry if it seemed like I singled you out, but you singled out them, and you got a big forum, and... Okay, I'm sorry, Rex. You're a great guy.
Don't you think there's a growing trend today in the media, those who write about what we do, whether it's motion pictures or television, to be vicious? I know for a fact that there is a columnist who works for one of the major newspapers here in New York who has been told by his editors, you must be more vicious. We want more vicious attacks upon people who perform.
Who? Who?
No, I'm not going to do it. No.
Yeah, I think that any form of journalism is yellow journalism anyway. It's capitalistic. You have to make a buck.
Yeah, but they praised you on Saturday Night Live, and they couldn't wait to knock your movies. And then I'm sure you start thinking, hey, maybe I'm not really any good. Look at what they're writing about me.
Well, you know, I felt at the time that I felt this elation. I was doing a late-night show that I liked. I wanted to write it. And suddenly I was actually doing this stuff where I'd pick up the phone and just say whatever came to my mind and get away with it, calling myself President Ford and doing... It was a great time, and I was singled out, and it was written out in magazines how golden boy of television. It goes to your head, right?
Next host of The Tonight Show.
And the next Johnny Carson, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, nobody's going to take Johnny's place. I'm sure they told you're the next host of The Tonight Show for a while.
Well, maybe they didn't.
Well, I'll tell you that.
Well, never mind. It
No, it's just I've heard so many. I've heard
is
so many versions. I don't know which is the true one anymore.
I don't know who is hosting it anymore.
Well, it's certainly not him. But anyway.
In any case, one has a tendency to believe that what the press writes and says, which is, yeah, this you must be pretty good. People see you in the streets and they say, Mr. Chase, your work stinks. No, they say, you know, I love your work and stuff. And then they start to write awful things about you.
Yeah.
Critics and reviewers. You all right? And you believe that, and you think you're a bad guy. And then you realize the problem was you were never good to begin with. You just believed the first guy. So just keep doing your work and do it as best you can, and if the audience likes you, they like you. So what do the critics write about my movie? I don't care.
Exactly.
Great movie, incidentally. Very funny
well, we're going to
movie.
take a look at a part of modern problems in just a couple of seconds, but here now are some words from our sponsors and from the NBC television station.